Imagine you are a probe falling through Jupiter's upper atmosphere. At first, there is light diffused in amber, tinted through layers of ammonia ice crystals that stretch for hundreds of kilometers like frozen veils across an alien sky. Then the light begins to fail. The clouds thicken into a crushing shroud, and you descend into eternal darkness where the temperature climbs and the pressure becomes a physical entity squeezing your instruments into compacted metal. Here, in this lightless furnace, hydrogen gas undergoes a transformation so violent, so fundamentally wrong, that it becomes liquid metal, an ocean of electrically conducting fluid with no floor, no surface, only endless depth and escalating horror. These are not planets in any human sense. They are the true lords of the solar system, ancient titanic engines of atmospheric violence and electromagnetic fury, where physics becomes a form of torture and the laws that govern our fragile world collapse into irrelevance. Today we descend into the abyss where light has never touched and where the monsters of the deep are not creatures but forces beyond comprehension. Jupiter was supposed to be a star. In the chaotic birth of our solar system, when the protoplanetary disk was still thick with gas and debris, Jupiter began accreting mass with a gravitational hunger that devoured everything in its path. It consumed hydrogen and helium, the raw fuel of stars, and grew to 318 times the mass of Earth. But it stopped just short of the threshold. To ignite fusion to become a true star, Jupiter would have needed to be at least 80 times more. Massive, it failed. What remains is a monument to cosmic near success, a bloated gas giant radiating more heat than it receives from the sun, a world locked in perpetual internal convection, a furnace that never went nuclear but never cooled either. Jupiter's atmosphere is a maelstrom. Wind speeds exceed 400 kilometers per hour in jet streams that circle the planet in bands of white ammonia clouds and brown ammonium hydrosulfide. These are not weather patterns. They are permanent atmospheric rivers carved by the planet's rapid 10-hour rotation and driven by the heat rising from the interior. The turbulence is so extreme that storms larger than Earth form and persist for centuries. The Great Red Spot is the most infamous of these. Discovered over 300 years ago, it is an anticyclonic storm, a high-pressure vortex spinning counterclockwise with wind speeds reaching 600 kilometers per hour. At its widest, the storm could swallow Earth twice over with room to spare. It is not a temporary disturbance. It is a semi-permanent feature, a wound in Jupiter's atmosphere that has raged since before the Industrial Revolution and shows no signs of healing. Recent observations reveal that the storm is shrinking, but even in its diminished state, it remains a monument to the sheer violence of Jovian meteorology. But the true terror of Jupiter lies not in its visible atmosphere, but in its magnetosphere. Jupiter generates the most powerful magnetic field of any planet in the solar system, 10 times stronger than a neutron star surface field and 20,000 times stronger than Earth's. This magnetosphere extends millions of kilometers into space, forming a vast invisible bubble that traps charged particles from the solar wind and accelerates them to lethal velocities. The radiation belts surrounding Jupiter are so intense that they would deliver a fatal dose to an unshielded human in a matter of minutes. NASA's Juno probe, built specifically to study Jupiter, is armored in a titanium vault to protect its electronics, and even so, mission planners expect the radiation to eventually fry its systems. Jupiter is not just a planet. It is a cosmic particle accelerator, a lethal zone of space that kills anything that ventures too close. Descend deeper. Below the visible cloud layers, the pressure and temperature climb exponentially. At a depth of approximately 1,000 kilometers, the atmospheric pressure exceeds 1 million times that of Earth's surface. Here, the very nature of hydrogen changes. Under such crushing force, hydrogen molecules are squeezed so tightly that the electrons are stripped away and the atoms collapse into a degenerate state, forming metallic hydrogen. Metallic hydrogen is one of the strangest substances in the universe. It is a liquid metal, but composed entirely of hydrogen, the simplest and most abundant element in the cosmos. It conducts electricity like copper. It is dense, slippery, and impossibly hot with temperatures exceeding 10,000 degrees Celsius. This is not an ocean in any terrestrial sense. There are no waves, no tides, no surface. It is a continuous gradient of increasing density and pressure extending downward for tens of thousands of kilometers toward a core that may or may not be solid, that may be a compressed ball of rock and ice 20 times the mass of Earth, or may have dissolved entirely into the surrounding hydrogen. The metallic hydrogen ocean is also the source of Jupiter's magnetic field. As the planet rotates, this electrically conductive fluid churns in convective cells, generating electric currents that produce the magnetosphere through a dynamo effect. The scale of this process is incomprehensible. The entire ocean is a planetary-scale electric generator converting gravitational energy and residual heat from Jupiter's formation into electromagnetic force. And then there is the diamond rain. On Jupiter and Saturn, scientists theorize that carbon from methane in the upper atmosphere is carried downward by convection. As the pressure increases, the carbon atoms are compressed and heated until they crystallize into diamonds. These diamonds, some potentially the size of icebergs, fall like hail through the metallic hydrogen ocean, sinking toward the core in a perpetual glittering storm. It is a beautiful image, but the reality is lethal. The temperatures would vaporize any probe. The pressure would crush a submarine like an aluminum can. The diamonds fall through a hell of liquid metal and crushing gravity beyond any human reference point. If Jupiter is a failed star, then Neptune and Uranus are the forgotten orphans of the solar system, exiled to the frozen outer reaches where the sun is a distant pale disk and temperatures plummet to negative 200 degrees Celsius. These are the ice giants smaller than Jupiter and Saturn, but no less alien, and in some ways far more terrifying. Neptune is the most distant of the classical planets, orbiting 30 times farther from the Sun than Earth. It is a world of superlatives. It has the fastest winds in the solar system, reaching 2,000 kilometers per hour faster than the speed of sound in Earth's atmosphere. These supersonic gales scream across the planet's upper layers, driven by internal heat that scientists still do not fully understand. Neptune radiates 2.6 times more energy than it receives from the sun, meaning it has its own internal furnace, a residual heat from its formation that has not yet dissipated after 4.5 billion years. The atmosphere is composed primarily of hydrogen and helium, but it is the trace compounds that give Neptune its striking azure color. Methane in the upper atmosphere absorbs red light and reflects blue, creating the illusion of a serene, oceanic world. But beneath the deceptive beauty lies a nightmare. Below the visible clouds, the pressure climbs and the temperature rises, and at a depth of approximately 7,000 kilometers, the atmospheric gases transition into a supercritical fluid state of matter that is neither liquid nor gas, but something in between. This supercritical ocean is composed of water, methane, and ammonia compressed to such density that it behaves like a thick, viscous fluid. The pressure here exceeds 2 million Earth atmospheres. The temperature is several thousand degrees. And unlike Jupiter's metallic hydrogen ocean, this supercritical layer is ionized, meaning it conducts electricity and generates Neptune's powerful magnetic field. But Neptune's magnetic field is tilted and offset from the planet's rotational axis, creating a chaotic, wobbling magnetosphere that defies simple explanation. Uranus, the twin ice giant, is even stranger. It rotates on its side, its axial tilt 98 degrees, likely the result of a catastrophic collision early in its history. This means that for half of its 84-year orbit, one pole faces the sun continuously, while the other is plunged into decades of darkness. The temperature differentials are extreme. The atmospheric dynamics are alien. And like Neptune, beneath the clouds lies a deep supercritical ocean of hot, dense ices under pressures that would annihilate any terrestrial material. In 1976, Carl Sagan and Edwin Salpeter published a speculative paper proposing that life could theoretically exist in the atmospheres of gas giants like Jupiter. They described hypothetical organisms called sinkers and floaters. Sinkers would be small, dense organisms that feed on organic molecules in the upper atmosphere, reproducing quickly before sinking into the lethal depths below. Floaters would be immense balloon-like creatures, potentially kilometers across, filled with hydrogen or helium to maintain buoyancy, feeding on sunlight and atmospheric chemistry, drifting through the ammonia clouds like living blimps. The idea sounds like science fiction, but the chemistry is plausible. Jupiter's atmosphere contains water, ammonia, methane, and complex organic molecules, the building blocks of life. Lightning storms, millions of times more powerful than Earth, provide energy to drive chemical reactions. The temperature and pressure gradients create distinct ecological zones analogous to ocean layers on Earth. Imagine a creature the size of a city floating in the turbulent jet streams of Jupiter. Its skin a membranous polymer resistant to ammonia and sulfuric acid. Its interior a vast cavity filled with warm hydrogen heated by metabolic processes. It feeds by filtering organic molecules from the clouds, photosynthesizing in the faint sunlight, or chemosynthesizing using the energy from electrical discharges. It reproduces by budding, releasing smaller floaters that drift upward into the cooler zones too. Mature. It has no eyes because sight is irrelevant in the eternal twilight. It has no concept of ground or sky, only pressure gradients and chemical cues. And it is not alone. Predators could exist too, jet-propelled hunters that expel gas to maneuver, pursuing the floaters through the clouds, tearing into their membranes to consume the hydrogen and nutrients within. The ecosystem would be vast, ancient, and utterly alien, operating on timescales of centuries in an environment where a single storm system is larger than an entire terrestrial biosphere. We have no evidence of such life. Our probes have detected organic molecules, but no metabolic signatures, no movement, no structures. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The depths of Jupiter and Neptune remain unexplored and perhaps unexplorable, and if life exists there, it would be so fundamentally different from terrestrial biology that we might not recognize it even if we saw it. These giants are laboratories of chaos worlds where the familiar rules of terrestrial existence dissolve into extremes of pressure, temperature, and electromagnetic violence. They are reminders that our blue marble, our thin atmosphere, and stable climate are cosmic anomalies, fragile exceptions in a universe dominated by hostility. We are prisoners of gravity and biology. We evolve in the narrow, habitable zone of a stable star on a rocky planet with liquid water and a protective magnetic field. The gas giants are forever beyond our reach, not because of distance, but because of physics. No human will ever walk on Jupiter because there is nothing to walk on. No probe will ever return samples from Neptune's core because the pressures would crush it into atomic paste. But these worlds watch us. They have been here since the solar system's birth, silent, titanic, and indifferent. They shape the orbits of comets. They shield the inner planets from asteroid impacts. They're the architects of our cosmic neighborhood, and we exist in their shadow. The monsters beneath the clouds are not creatures. They're the planets themselves, vast, incomprehensible engines of nature that dwarf our existence and remind us that the universe was not made for us. We are tourists in a cosmos of giants, and the abyss beneath those swirling clouds will keep its secrets long after humanity is gone.